Greetings, and welcome to the Cracked Love Chronicles. As I entered, brushing off the gentle rain, I was in the midst of unlocking my front door when a voice drifted out from the dimly lit corner of the porch. I don't want to startle you. My name is Nora Bennett. Her voice had a soft, melodic tone that sent a delightful shiver through me. You did startle me, but only for a moment. Let me just unlock the door and turn on some lights. I finally managed to open the door and brighten the entryway, then turned to the woman standing on the porch. She rose to her feet. At approximately 5'10", she possessed dark auburn hair and donned an iridescent raincoat that elegantly highlighted her graceful silhouette. Her outfit was completed with a stylish pair of suede ankle boots and finely crafted clothing. "Please, step inside, Nora Bennett," I said, motioning towards the hangers for her coat and shawl. "I'll switch on additional lights and brew some coffee. Would you care for a cup?" "That would be appreciated," she responded. While I measured the coffee, the sound of the front door opening and closing echoed behind me. As I awaited her arrival, I retrieved a cold roast beef from the fridge and started to slice it. She lingered in the doorway, observing intently. "In the doorway, you'll find bread in the box on the counter and utensils tucked away in that drawer. Which do you prefer, mustard or mayonnaise? I'll prepare this in just a moment, and then we can assemble some sandwiches." 30 minutes later, we were wrapping up our meal. "Well, Miss Nora, how may I assist you today?" "For the time being, it's Mrs. Nora. I happened to be in town and came across your classified ad regarding a room for rent, along with the option to share utility costs. Is the room still open for booking?" "Indeed, it is," I replied. "I currently have 2 rooms available for rent, and I need to rent both to make it work here. A 3/4 bath is available. You'll be sharing the area between the rooms, so if you choose to move in, a roommate will be assigned once one is located. As you are the first to reply, I will permit you to interview any additional candidates if you have substantial reservations. If needed, I can hold off for someone who may be more suitable. The monthly rent is set at $350, with an additional $20 for the phone service, and you'll be responsible for your own long-distance calls. If you remain here this winter, you'll need to cover 1/4 of the electric bill, and the same applies to heating costs. You will have complete access to the kitchen, as long as you tidy up after yourself. I possess an abundance of. Please feel free to use the dishes. I noticed there wasn't a car outside. I arrived by taxi, and my bags are in the hall." She took a brief moment to reflect. "If the other room is still open, I would like to claim it too. Let's set it at a solid $1,000 each month, and I'll handle my own phone bill. If I remain here throughout the winter, that should take care of my portion of the heating expenses. I'm glad to assist in the kitchen and whip up some meals. Would that setup be suitable for you? It appears that fortune is smiling upon me today. You are the solution to all my hopes if you don't have a. Feel free to take my car for any errands or similar tasks. I believe I will find pleasure in residing here. At this point, you'll need the first month's rent. I'll arrange to provide that along with a month for the security deposit." She picked up her shoulder bag from the floor and opened her wallet, extracting precisely $2,000 from one of the compartments and passing it to me. "I think that addresses the rent for both the first and last month." She retrieved a receipt from a different compartment, requested my signature, and returned it to her wallet. I found myself perplexed, for the receipt had already been arranged. Suddenly, she stood at my doorstep, fully cognizant of both her motives and my own. I led Mrs. Nora up the staircase to the 2 rooms she had booked. As I opened the door to the room I believed she would favor, I lingered just outside, having devoted years to this very space. Linens and blankets can be found in the chest by the south wall. "Would you like assistance with making the bed?" Nora shook her head, politely refusing the offer. "Sure, I'll take your bags upstairs. You must be feeling worn out. I typically don't stay out this late myself." The night stretched on, each moment lingering as I sat on the porch, lost in thought. I valued Milo's company. As I reclined in bed, my mind danced with reflections on the individual I was cohabiting with. The final words she uttered left me deeply disturbed. She referred to me as Milo. How in the world did she come to know that name? My name was Arnold Ben Brown. It seemed like she possessed an understanding of our agreement even before we broached the subject. She displayed remarkable generosity with her finances, never taking the time to inspect the rooms before we came to an agreement. Her voice sent a shiver coursing through me. At first, I found myself questioning why that moment transpired in such a manner. Her presence was captivating, and I couldn't help but be drawn to her height as she stepped into the kitchen, code in hand. What an impressive figure she possessed. It seemed odd to me that throughout our lunch conversation, she didn't smile even once. She spoke of her marriage, but I could tell she didn't expect that situation to endure for much longer. Either a divorce was on the horizon, or her husband was approaching the end. As I slipped into slumber, the haunting nightmare resurfaced, pulling me from my dreams at the expected hour, prompting me to survey my surroundings. As I cast my eyes toward the clock, I verified that it was, without a doubt, 3 o'clock. As if on cue, I donned my robe and nestled into the well-worn easy chair that I had moved to this room when the nightmares first started haunting me. I could hear my housemate shifting around in the room above me, probably making her way to the bathroom or grappling with her own unease. It seemed unlikely that she had any knowledge of the occurrences that had transpired in this very place for years earlier, didn't it? Perhaps the enduring animosity and fury had permeated the very walls, disturbing the one who now resided within. Each time I stepped inside, it undeniably stirred something within me. Upon my return home after serving time for causing serious harm to my wife's lover, I found my wife, Chloe, in bed with a person I had once regarded as my closest friend. In a surge of fury, I unleashed my wrath upon him, moving through the room as Chloe desperately begged me to cease. The clash concluded with me pushing him down the stairs, rendering my once friend, Jack Patterson, unable to walk again. 3 months have passed since my release from prison, and I tried to find solace in my old bedroom. However, the nightmare struck that very night, and I never set foot in that room again. I truly couldn't bear to stay there for the rest of that night. Did Chloe get some rest? In that room, as I faced my confinement, she stayed in this house throughout my incarceration, anticipating my trial. I never should have found myself behind bars, yet I had repeatedly and openly expressed my threats towards Jack and Chloe. The authorities considered me a threat to Jack, imposing a bail so exorbitant that I was unable to secure it, resulting in my confinement until the trial that eventually led to my sentencing. I finalized my divorce from Chloe as quickly as possible, but the process took several months, and I haven't had any real communication with her since it was completed. I knew, however, that Jack's health had worsened and that Chloe had. I relocated to look after him, taking up residence with one of the few remaining friends I had in the area. Upon my return home, I discovered this from him. I have to admit, Chloe did a fantastic job keeping the house in order, which made my return all the more pleasant. I wonder if she would have received this position in the divorce settlement if she had requested it. It belonged to me long before I ever met her. My attorney confidently assured me that it would stay with me given those circumstances. She hadn't chased it, yet she had embraced its worth, leaving me almost broke upon my return. That was the reason I needed to welcome boarders. Having once served as a reporter for a newspaper, I now dedicated myself to re-establishing my presence by creating articles and essays for a range of publications. Furthermore, I was crafting a manuscript for a book that had been forming in my thoughts throughout the lengthy months of my confinement. The creative journey was unfolding seamlessly, yet my time was constrained, as I had to focus on tasks that ensured my financial stability. In the meantime, a woman resided upstairs, captivating my curiosity. She embodied a certain enigma, and I felt an undeniable pull towards her presence. My attention was divided when it came to my new housemate, as every cent mattered for keeping my home afloat, and in that instant, she symbolized my only hope. I succumbed to slumber, gradually sinking into a profound sleep while seated in my chair. The rich scent of coffee pulled me from my dreams. I quickly washed up and groomed myself before making my way to the kitchen. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennett," I exclaimed, lured by the rich aroma of coffee. I thought I'd drop by to see if I could grab a cup while I'm getting my own ready. "It's Nora, just so you know. I'll soon be able to shed the Mrs. title, as my divorce is merely awaiting the final decree, if it ever comes through. Since it's just the two of us, let's split the grocery costs. I take pleasure in preparing meals, and if what I create doesn't align with your preferences, simply inform me, and I'll gladly prepare an alternative. I want to ensure that our relationship feels balanced and fair. Maybe I ought to refund a portion of your payment, or at the very least modify our agreement from last night. Let's adhere to our strategy and come back to this discussion at a later time." I feel that my financial support could assist you in regaining your stability. I'm confident that you appreciate poached eggs, and they are rather easy to prepare. Nearly there. Could you please spread some butter on the toast? I expressed my gratitude to Nora for the breakfast, and once more, she referred to me as Milo, as though she was aware that this was my name. It was a conundrum. I informed her that I would be in my office, focused on my work, yet I had the desire to head into town to visit the bank. If she were to create a grocery list, I would gather the items she specified. She could accompany me, or I could gather whatever she suggested we would require. She mentioned that she would prepare the list and that she wouldn't be going to town this time. The bank was pleased to receive the funds from the loan officer. There was ongoing pressure about the payment, and it was assumed that my housemate would continue living with me. Upon clarifying the origin of the funds, I noted the acquisition of a solitary rose, meticulously housed in a rigid plastic sleeve, which I nestled among the groceries. Once I had emptied the car into the kitchen, I promptly turned my attention back to my manuscript. By lunchtime, the table was graced with a rose in a bud vase. We settled into our new routine with ease. Nora only made trips to town when she had letters to send, firmly insisting on handling them herself and not permitting me to mail anything for her. I assumed she preferred to keep her affairs private, so I wondered if there were any letters for her. I observed her making trips to a rented post office box, suggesting she was receiving correspondence from someone. From time to time, I would catch snippets of her conversations on the phone, and it was following one of those calls that she accidentally referred to me as Leo instead of Milo. My home brimmed with books, and I possessed a library card, which meant our evenings were devoted to reading in the living room. The television served solely as a source of news. I faced enough challenges in my life, and sitcoms held no appeal for me, nor did they seem to connect with Nora either. I pressed on. Whenever I happened to purchase a single rose, a thank you would always follow when she discovered it while organizing the groceries. As time passed, I observed a nostalgic half-smile grace her lips upon her discovery. If I had known it would bring her such joy, I would have purchased an entire bouquet of roses just for her. You're aware of my past, aren't you? After 6 months of cohabitation, I felt compelled to dig a bit deeper. At that moment, we found ourselves in the living room. Indeed, I've heard about it from someone in town. Are you not troubled by that? Some individuals believe I was a person filled with rage, and I found myself incarcerated for almost ending another's life. The individual who brought this to my attention indicated that although I had engaged in an act of violence, there was a valid reason for it. This makes me think it was a one-time occurrence, and you're not someone to be afraid of. The longer I am with you, the more I feel that you harbor regrets about your choices, and it's not just about the time behind bars. That effectively encapsulates my reflections. In a mere 5 minutes, the lives of 3 individuals were irrevocably shattered. Have you discussed this with your former spouse? She may be curious to find out. No, definitely not. I have not encountered her, nor desired to since I listened to her imploring me not to hurt her partner. She tried to connect with me both while I was in jail awaiting trial and during my time in prison, but I had no interest then, and I won't engage with her now. Have you thought about the possibility that she aimed to stop you from ending that man's life for your own benefit? You endured almost 4 years in prison due to your decision not to follow through. What would your time in prison have been like if you had been incarcerated? It seems we'll remain in the dark about that, doesn't it? I wish I hadn't initiated this discussion, and I would rather not pursue it further. I'm done thinking about it. I'm going to focus on my book. Good night. So much for my attempts to learn anything about Nora. That question lingered in my mind like a haunting dream before dawn. Was Nora right? Was Chloe trying to shield me from harming Jack to protect me, and not him? Nora and I never revisited the topic, and I didn't reach out to her to uncover her past either. I have no idea how long it took before I fell for Nora. She was there in the house with me, and gradually we found solace in each other's presence. I couldn't express to her how I felt. The burden of my past made me feel trapped, as if I were confined within invisible walls. What could I possibly bring to the table for her? It appeared more prudent to hold my tongue and avoid taking any steps forward. There were instances when our eyes met, hinting at unspoken words, yet those fleeting moments always eluded me. After a year and 4 months of cohabitation, Nora rapped gently on my office door. "Leo, I just received a call from a friend, and I urgently need a ride to the bus station." The bus departs in 30 minutes, so I need you to take me immediately. Of course, are you taking a bag filled with only a few dresses and necessary items? I can't specify when I'll be back, so please don't fret about me. I'll get in touch when I'm able. The bus driver was occupied with securing her luggage as she waited in line to board. It seemed like a pivotal moment in my journey. Nora glanced over to assess my response. Nora, please return. My existence would be profoundly hollow without you. I refrained from leaning in for a kiss, yet the fervor in my gaze was unmistakable. Leo, I promise I'll be back. With that, Nora stepped closer, enveloped me in her embrace, and lingered just a moment longer than needed. It was essential, as though she loathed the idea of release. I observed her as she chose a seat beside me on the bus, allowing me a clear view of her. As the bus departed, she offered me a small wave and that warm smile I had come to cherish whenever I slipped a rose among the groceries. One day, I hoped to bring her joy. If that subtle smile was anything to go by, a full laugh would surely brighten the world around us. It was almost a month before I received any word from Nora. There was a complete absence of communication from her, and I started to question whether I had merely conjured up the notion that she harbored any feelings for me. I was completely unaware. I was left in suspense, simply biding my time until her return. At last, a call arrived after the clock struck 10 one evening. Given the hour, I couldn't help but think it must be her. Before I picked it up, I said, "Hello, Nora. I've been waiting for your call." "I'm sure you have, and I apologize for not staying in touch," she replied. "Leo, I understand there are topics you wish to discuss, and I have feelings to share with you too. However, I have a request. My half-sister is undergoing surgery tomorrow morning. Could you come here and be with me while she is in the operating room? It means a lot to me. It's essential for me to obtain the address and understand where to locate you. I'm not quite sure how long I'll be staying. It might just be for the night or possibly a bit more. It would be wise to bring your finest suit, just in case we choose to venture out somewhere special. Kindly begin at your earliest convenience so we can engage in a discussion prior to the surgery." Nora shared the location of a motel situated about 80 miles from the hospital where the surgery is planned. I packed my suit, as it was understood without words that I might require it for a funeral at the very least. Nora looked to me in her moment of vulnerability, and I could only wish she held some warmth for me. The last month without her had been almost intolerable. I reached the motel at approximately 3 a.m. Just a single unit glowed softly, and there stood Nora in the doorway, patiently awaiting my arrival. She welcomed me with open arms, pressing her lips gently against mine as I drew near. I could feel the tightness in her grip, a clear sign of her unease. In the end, she set me free from the deep connection we had just shared. There was a great deal to cover, and time was of the essence. We had much to look forward to. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, and I'll strive to provide a thoughtful response. I simply need you to listen to me, and if you have any emotions regarding this, I hope you can remain calm. To begin, examine these two images closely. The initial image is from your home album, capturing you at the age of 6. Next, take a look at the second one, captured just last month. Nora passed them to me, and I examined each one in turn. The boy in the second photo bears a striking resemblance to me. Who is that person? To give you a bit of background about my half-sister and me, my father was tragically killed while during my time on the railroad. An incident involving the roadbed took place while my mother was expecting me. Following my birth, she was a friend of my father's and quickly found herself expecting once more, this time welcoming a girl named Chloe. Nora watched me closely as I absorbed this information. I stood quietly, taking in her words. "So, Chloe, your half-sister is my ex-wife? So, you're telling me that I have a son with her? Is that accurate?" That's the essence of it. There's a deeper narrative at play, but let's hold off on that for now. I would like to point out that Chloe could be one of those people who is capable of genuinely loving two men profoundly, or at the very least, feigning such affection. There is you, and then there is Jack. If you can understand that, then I will reveal that she asserts she has never held you accountable for your actions, nor has Jack. She has taken on all the blame herself. I found myself reflecting on the situation, understanding that the sole route to contentment with Nora lay in adhering to her desires. Chloe is facing a brain tumor, and the odds of her surviving the surgery this morning are not in her favor. She might emerge from it all intact, or she could find herself reduced to little more than a shell. And 3. She consistently informs her doctor that if it seems to lead to option 2, he must make sure it evolves into option 3 for her. He appears to be exceptionally in tune with his patients. Allow me to share some insights regarding your son. Chloe was expecting when you found her with Jack, though she was not aware of her situation. At that time, she remained your wife, only finalizing the divorce after the baby was born. Amidst a swirl of conflicting feelings tinged with both resentment and affection, she chose the name Junior, convinced that destiny would guide Jack to play a significant role. Father, that was the scenario until the boy reached 4, when Jack demanded a paternity test. As little Milo grew, it became more and more evident that he was truly yours, a truth validated by the test. In the event that something were to occur with Chloe, I would take on the role of Milo's guardian for the time being, while you would be recognized as his biological father, carrying your name. If this morning's procedure doesn't unfold as expected, I will be taking little Milo home with me. Would that pose a problem for you? I shook my head, rendered speechless, engulfed by the sheer volume of information. A whirlwind of thoughts surged through my mind in the last half hour, rendering me speechless. Chloe hopes to meet with you prior to her surgery. She wants to express her apologies for the turmoil she's brought into everyone's lives. Would you be able to open your heart and truly hear her out? Nora wasn't begging, yet she held a quiet hope that I might entertain the idea of talking to Chloe. Absolutely, I will. I wish to ask for her forgiveness for my challenging behavior over the years. I'm grateful for this chance. Maybe it will aid in banishing some of the lingering nightmares that trouble me. Chloe will proceed to surgery with my full support. I took a moment to reflect, contemplating whether I might be. With Jack around this morning, I trust you can manage that situation calmly. Absolutely, I can do that for Chloe, and particularly for you. All right, let's grab a quick bite. It's going to be a lengthy day ahead. I requested a wake-up call at 7:30, allowing us a couple of hours to rest. We reclined on the bed, our bodies aligned yet separate, with only our hands intertwined, holding on tightly to one another. A nurse halted me at the entrance of Chloe's room to confirm my identity. With the approval in hand, I inhaled deeply. As I opened the door, I discovered a solitary bedroom where Chloe rested, a soft smile adorning her lips, her eyes shut peacefully. She felt me near and murmured, "Step closer, Milo, so that when I finally open my eyes, I can take in all of you at once." Tears escaped from beneath her closed eyelids. I bent forward, gently pressing my lips to hers in a tender kiss, before pulling away. Her eyes fluttered open, and for the first time in more than 5 years, we genuinely connected. "Milo," she started. "Before you respond, I was aware I was treading on dangerous ground when I chose to marry you while still harboring feelings for Jack. For some reason, I find myself in a tangled scenario, ensnared by a multitude of profound feelings. I cherished you, and I cherished Jack. Recognizing that your professional commitments would frequently pull you away, I decided to marry you, which enabled me to maintain my connection with Jack. I thought that tying the knot with you would protect me from any doubts about my loyalty to him. It was a flawed idea of wanting everything at once. This morning, time is not on our side, but I want you to know that every letter I sent while you were in prison has been carefully duplicated. Nora possesses the copies, and when you have a chance, I trust you'll take the time to read the originals. I understood the consequences. You ripped it apart without a second thought. Could you possibly do that for me? Absolutely, I will. Chloe, Nora has informed me that you've blessed me with a son. Do you genuinely wish for me to take on the role of a father to him? Indeed, if I make it through this procedure today, I still wish for him to reside with you and Nora. I would like to see him occasionally, naturally, but I want you to take care of him. If and when I step out of here, I will be marrying Jack. Jack understands this and concurs, despite his deep affection for little Milo, which you too will come to share. Would you kiss me and assure me that you no longer harbor any resentment towards me, Chloe? I hold no ill will against you. Instead, I am grappling with understanding your viewpoint. Hatred is the furthest feeling from my thoughts. I offer you my forgiveness for all that has transpired, and through your letters and Nora, I trust that I will come to comprehend you as time unfolds. No, I don't harbor any ill feelings towards you. I humbly ask for your forgiveness for the hurt I have inflicted upon you and Jack. I found myself trapped, and when I finally broke free, I put Jack in a wheelchair, condemning him to a confinement far more unbearable than any I had experienced in ages. I used to think he deserved it, but my perspective has shifted. I find myself in need of forgiveness, though I wonder what value that holds. Milo, it's yours now. Embrace my lips once more. Nora, Jack, and young Milo are just moments away from arriving. I sat by the bed, grasping Chloe's hand, when suddenly the door swung open with a bang, and a small boy rushed in. Hi, Mom. They haven't taken you away yet. I was hoping to see you one more time. Norris said. God may take you away, and look at you. If he doesn't want you yet, he will send you back. I hope he doesn't want you, 'cause I love you. He crawled onto the bed and kissed his mother. Tears cascaded down my face, blurring my vision of him. Nora entered, propelling Jack forward. In his wheelchair, he looked much like I remembered, but the years had carved deeper lines into his face than into mine. A robe hung loosely over his legs, yet it failed to mask the delicate fragility underneath. Hello, Jack. It's been quite a while, I remarked, getting up to circle the bed and offer my hand. I apologize for my actions. It took some time, but I've come to regret what transpired that day. He met my gaze, and I went on. Milo, I held on to resentment for a long time. I've come to understand that I was the one at fault. Chloe attempts to shoulder the blame, but I should have recognized the consequences of my choices, especially considering you were my closest friend. Your actions mirrored what I would have done in a committed relationship when confronted with a similar circumstance. Let's move forward. We can get together sometime and reflect on the fond memories of the past. At one point, we formed an extraordinary partnership. He shifted his chair nearer to the bed, extending his hand toward Chloe's, mirroring the gesture I had made prior to his arrival. I observed the same glimmer in her gaze for him that I had witnessed when I stood beside her. It became clear to me that Chloe truly valued both Jack and me in the same way. I stepped outside, and Nora trailed behind me. Leo, would you consider the idea of marrying me this month? Being apart from you and seeing you this morning has solidified my feelings for you. If anything were to happen to Chloe, we would have little Milo by our side. That's why I'm inquiring. My affection for you runs deep, and I am confident that we can create a beautiful life side by side. Could this be considered a proposal? I was on the verge of inquiring about that as well, but you got there first. I've longed for you deeply over the past month. Your voice has a way of sending shivers down my spine. That first night you showed up at my door, I sensed that I was on the brink of falling for you. From the moment we first conversed, even before I had a glimpse of your appearance, it was an experience filled with pure delight. Can I let Chloe know that we are getting married before she goes into surgery? It seems like it would bring her some comfort. Maybe we can spread the word together if there's an opportunity. She ought to have ample time with Jack and little Milo. I imagine he has braced himself for the worst if things take a turn for the worse. That's what occupied my time so thoroughly this past month. It's truly heartbreaking, and the doctors say she is only a slim hope. I am convinced that we possess. We extended every ounce of support we had, and now the responsibility lies with the higher powers to take the reins. I feel as though everything rests in their control. We all followed Chloe as her bed was rolled into the preoperative area. Young Milo journeyed beside his mother, as Jack and I grasped her hands tightly. Nora, her eyes glistening with emotion, softly caressed Chloe's leg to convey her unwavering support. We all shared a kiss with Chloe before the doors swung open, and she vanished from view. At this point, it was simply about biding time. Nora started to engage with little Milo, offering soothing words of reassurance. Him that he had never had anyone to refer to as daddy before I arrived to take on that role. Swift, curious, and full of faith, he quickly took my hand as we embarked on our quest for the candy machine. In a flurry, inquiries bombarded me, leaving me unable to respond to some. I could have deceived or manipulated the facts, but I chose to honestly acknowledge my lack of knowledge. Upon our return to Jack and Nora, young Milo proclaimed, "My new daddy doesn't have the answers to many of my questions, yet he assured us that we would discover the answers together. In that case, we would both be familiar with them. I believe that's rather kind of him, wouldn't you agree?" Aunt Nora beamed at me, her smile unexpected and warm, radiating a sincerity that revealed her deep affection. "It seems I've found the right approach. as winning her affection appears to be linked to this wonderful child of mine. That sounds quite agreeable to me. A member of the medical team addressed us at 1 p.m. Reports indicated that Chloe was handling things effectively, and so far, the team had faced no major obstacles. They expected to spend another hour and a half before sealing her skull. The chief surgeon would share his assessment at that moment. After what seemed like an eternity of 2 hours, he finally emerged, appearing rather weary. He expressed that the operation had been successful overall, yet they had pinpointed one issue. A small area considered too hazardous to tackle, as it was located too near a significant blood vessel and intertwined with a nerve bundle. They had taken every measure to secure the most favorable result. The tumor cannot regenerate or grow back. Nonetheless, the unpredictability of outcomes persists. Although we can forecast outcomes, our predictions may not always be precise. At present, we are maintaining Chloe in a condition akin to a coma to avert any possible seizures that may result from the swelling induced by the surgical procedure. This swelling was the initial reason for her arrival here. She is expected to stay in this state for about 4 to 7 days. When the time comes to awaken her, you are invited to join us. Until then, remaining here holds minimal significance. It would be prudent to carry on with your lives at this time. Her outlook for a complete recovery is very encouraging. Jack contacted his nurse, George, the individual who had assisted him and cared for him at home. He asked if I would like to stay at his place until Chloe woke up, but I graciously declined. I noted that I was in the process of completing a book I had been developing and required to be available for my editor. He expressed curiosity and inquired about the book's content. I responded by saying that it centered on my experiences while I was incarcerated. Following that, the dialogue came to a halt while we collected a few items. The clothing of young Milos and the letters that Chloe claimed were just duplicates of those I had torn apart during my imprisonment were now in our hands. Young Milo was filled with excitement to explore his new abode. In the course of the last month, it became evident that he and Nora had developed a deep connection, and he seemed to harbor almost as much fondness for her as he did for his mother. Nora noted that Chloe often exhibited a stern demeanor towards her son, regularly reprimanding him for behaviors he was unaware of. Her method of balancing discipline and affection appeared unpredictable, possibly shaped by the tumor that Nora found herself questioning whether the ideas dancing in her mind were born from her imagination or merely reflections of her own nature. Little Milo had always found her charming and felt a sense of safety in their bond, which naturally attracted him to her. As they journeyed home, he animatedly recounted tales from his day in kindergarten, highlighting the friendships he had forged, all while looking forward to the beginning of first grade at summer's end. He seemed rather intelligent to me, though maybe that was shaped by my wish for him to be. The mere idea of welcoming a son was truly remarkable. When we finally reached home, the evening had grown quite late. I thought it would be most suitable for Milo to rest in her bed this evening. If he found himself awakening in a strange environment, far from his mother's comforting presence, he would seek solace in something known, and that would be Nora. I carefully lifted little Milo and brought him upstairs, softly rousing him just enough for a quick bathroom visit before leading him into Nora's room, where she was already snuggled under the covers. I assisted him in shedding his clothes and slipping into his pajamas, gently leading him to the cozy spot next to his aunt where he could snuggle up comfortably. As I bent down to connect with his eyes, I pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. "Sleep well, my boy. I'll see you in the morning." He hesitated, looking for the strange word that eluded him. "Daddy," my heart swelled with joy. After an hour had passed, I found myself in my office, deep in contemplation, when a gentle knock broke the silence. "Hello, is it all right if I enter? I've been up here contemplating whether you truly meant it when you expressed your love for me." I descended to confirm my suspicions. "My love for you is true, and I wish to marry you." Rather than responding, she embraced me tightly. Nora is a substantial presence, and as she shaped her form against mine, it was clear we were destined to align perfectly. The moment unfolded effortlessly. A trace of fervor lingered in the kiss, though it may not have reached the level of intensity one could anticipate. For more than a year, we shared the same space, living side by side, yet never forming a genuine connection. My understanding of Nora was confined to the instant she presented herself, although that wasn't completely precise. I found out that she was the half-sister of my former spouse. Indeed, I noted her charming disposition and her subtle emotional restraint. It required a considerable amount of time for me to see her smile. "This is my inaugural visit to your office, just so you know. I recognize your presence. To succeed, you must excel and discover ways to monetize your craft. Recently, I've observed that when I provide you with my share of the house money, it occasionally takes several days for you to make the deposit at the bank. The monetary benefits are beginning to materialize. Before my time in prison, I experienced success, and it required considerable effort to restore my credibility after my release. At present, I find myself facing a considerable workload, possibly more than I would prefer, until I complete my book, which I anticipate will be finished shortly." The narrative delves into the realities of prison life, examining the factors that drive individuals toward incarceration, informed by my personal experiences. In merely 5 minutes, an individual's existence can shift in a profound way. Every crime I've outlined took place during that short period. The second case study in the book brings this to life, while the first tells the story of a prisoner given a 1-year sentence. In total, there are 7 cases, although I could have added additional ones. The concluding case presents an individual who has endured more than 4 decades within the confines of a single prison, burdened by 2 life sentences along with an extra 99 years. The act was appalling, yet it unfolded in a mere 5 minutes, serving as a chilling reminder of the swift shifts life can take. He went to collect his daughter from school and noticed his wife in another man's car, where they were locked in a fervent embrace. Upon spotting their daughter, she swiftly left the vehicle. This incited an intense reaction from him, culminating in a heartbreaking event that resulted in the deaths of his wife and daughter, as well as 4 other school children. Nora cast a fleeting glance in my direction before her gaze fell to the ground. "I understand what you're saying. Once we become more familiar, I'll be happy to share my story with you. It's not a beautiful tale, and I must confess that I've experienced my share of shadows too. I have yet to encounter the confines of prison, yet my choices might have taken me there, were it not for the mercy of a thoughtful jury. There is a vast world of discovery and understanding waiting for us to delve into together. May I borrow another kiss for the moment?" The final one left me craving additional experiences. This morning, I experienced a sense of unfamiliarity with my son, who seemed to be on a journey to rediscover who I am. I swiftly had him laughing uproariously as I whimsically flung pancakes onto his plate, feigning they were frisbees. Nora was reveling in the playful antics, wholeheartedly embracing the joy of the moment. At the same age as young Milo, everything felt just right. I entrusted Nora with the task of showing little Milo around the inside of the house, while I planned to handle the outside later. An ancient barn had graced the property since the 1700s. I recounted the times I would ascend to great heights, my father observing proudly from below. "Incredible, so high up." I fondly recalled the days when this place was home to animals. We had a horse, 3 cows, and a flock of chickens. I once had a dog. Would I ever consider bringing another dog into my life? Upon reflection, it seems I just might. Is Milo interested in having a dog nearby? Indeed, he held a firm belief that he would. I had to submit my manuscript today, leaving Nora to entertain little Milo. Their voices floated through the air, interspersed with her soft humming from time to time. What a transformation. Nora reached out to the hospital for an update on Chloe. All was well, nothing to note. I recommended that she get in touch with Jack to check in. Inquiries passed between us. "I appreciate your call. How is young Milo doing?" "Excellent." Leo and Nora's home offered him a more nurturing environment than being with his mother. What was the implication of that, Nora? As I pondered that remark, it became clear that we did not have enough information to unravel Jack's intent. Over the course of the next 3 days, the reports from the doctors stayed the same. By the 6th day, it was concluded that Chloe could be safely awakened from her coma. We assembled, eagerly awaiting the moment. The physician cautioned us that Chloe might lose her ability to communicate and could struggle to identify us. It might take several days before she could rise to her feet and move about. Jack and Nora stepped in first when the doctor allowed it, but they were back in just 2 minutes. She stepped out and softly whispered, a smile gracing her lips. I entered, grasping little Milo's hand. It seems the bandages frightened him, as he glanced at them and immediately buried his face against my thigh. I spoke gently, Milo misses you dearly. I'm so relieved to hear you're on the mend. We all care for you and are keeping you in our thoughts. Chloe smiled, and I guided Milo back outside. He broke down in tears and approached Nora. She lifted him gently and reassured, "Mommy will be okay soon." It required patience to help Chloe regain her ability to walk, talk, and resume a typical life. The journey through therapy was arduous and filled with challenges for her. I noticed it during our regular visits, where she frequently shared her frustrations about her circumstances. Jack married Chloe, expressing that he didn't foresee many years to come and didn't wish for Chloe to be tied to him. Nevertheless, she remained steadfast, and he valued her unwavering support, even amidst the trials of living together. Finally, it seemed like the sun was casting its warm glow upon me. Nora brought joy to my life, and Milo amplified that joy even further. I was no longer merely Milo. That name was exclusively reserved for young Milo. I was Leo and Nora, and I longed for Chloe to share in our wedding day. Having persevered through the extensive therapy, the hope she held turned out to be in vain when Jack and his nurse showed up without her. He conveyed that she was not feeling well and decided against making the trip. We were united in marriage, after all. From the moment I started shaping my manuscript, a wave of hope washed over me. My book has finally been printed and is now available in bookstores. It's surreal. It started to climb the charts, and in just 6 weeks, it secured a spot on multiple bestsellers lists. Every correctional facility throughout the country included it in their collection. Clearly, it held a unique significance. My presentation of the material was deemed crucial for anyone engaged in the fields of psychiatry and the criminal mind. The perspective I presented captured the attention of criminologists in a notable way. My path led me from the role of a small-town newspaper reporter to becoming a prison felon, then to writing a book, and finally to interacting with various state legislators on the subject. Nora stood by me steadfastly, sharing her life story one night before the book's release, even though she hadn't yet read the manuscript. As she articulated her thoughts, there were, in the moments of our lives, I could perceive the reverberations of collective memories. Nora, having married a successful executive, experienced a fleeting moment of joy. One afternoon, as she came home sooner than usual, she stumbled upon her husband in a close moment with another woman. Consumed by fury, she erupted in a cascade of invectives until he quelled her with a stern order, accentuated by a strike to her cheek. As he hit her once more, the other woman lunged forward, scratching at her arms and face. In a moment of sheer rebellion, Nora grasped a letter opener and drove it into her husband's chest. Twice, once in the arm and once in the side, he faltered in his effort to flee from the weapon, his eyes fluttering open to reveal her towering above him, the weapon held menacingly at his throat. A fleeting pause, a short escape from the edge of turning into a murderer. She revealed her longing to drive the opener into him over and over, yet paused, her internal conflict still unresolved, as her husband blamed her for the stabbing. It was only during the last cross-examination of the woman who had been there that the trial started to shift in Nora's favor. She was compelled to admit that Nora had actually been hit twice. Before she grasped the letter opener, she recognized that Nora was poised to plunge the weapon into her husband's throat. Instead, she let it fall, stood up, and dialed 911. She settled into a chair on the opposite side of the room, anticipating the arrival of assistance. Nora admitted that her fury was so intense it obscured her clarity of thought. In that instant, as he gazed into her eyes, her husband understood the gravity of his situation, and time seemed to freeze for her. Later, upon reading my manuscript, she commented that if she had been looking into Jack's eyes, she would have pushed him away. The stares had rendered him unable, and shortly after I came back home from prison, Nora showed up at my door. This was entirely because of Chloe, who worried that I might become so despondent with life that I would contemplate ending it. A friend of hers in town had notified her when I posted a classified ad seeking a housemate. Nora had been at Chloe's place, and before long, she found herself on my porch. I was perplexed by how she had managed to conceal my son from me for such an extended period, primarily due to my estrangement from Chloe. I was completely taken aback that I had never come across the fact that Chloe had a dear sister. During my marriage, everything seemed to flow naturally. Chloe's father encouraged her mother to entrust Nora to the care of his wife's sister. resulting in Nora being brought up by her aunt. The two girls were aware of a sibling's existence, yet their paths never intertwined. They continued on their individual paths until Nora reached out to Chloe following her trial. Even with their bond, they remained mostly unfamiliar to one another, yet they exchanged gestures of affection. Life with Nora felt almost perfect, and we showered little Milo with all the love we had to offer. Once, Jack and I engaged in a conversation. For a while, the experience of being married seemed burdensome, even though he never expressed any dissatisfaction. Chloe was seldom at home when Nora or I tried to connect or dropped by. At first, Milo experienced her absence profoundly, yet as time went on and her visits dwindled, he appeared to store her away in the recesses of his mind. In that moment, he found himself enveloped by the warmth of our love and care. When we inquired about what would bring Jack the greatest happiness, he shared his wish for a van fitted with hand controls, enabling him to drive independently and carry his wheelchair. We had a conversation and organized for Jack to use his van. A distinct change flickered across Chloe's face when we brought up the fact that the van had been paid for. She appeared somewhat detached, as if lost in thought. It felt like she was in the midst of a metamorphosis, evolving into a completely different person. Jack visited us twice, radiating pride as he maneuvered the van into our yard. He spent 3 days with us on his first visit and a week on his second. I asked about Chloe and if she would feel his absence or the reason she chose not to accompany him. He noted that they were. He intended to arrive a week before Christmas, yet he never clarified if Chloe felt his absence. Jack reached out the evening prior to his and Chloe's planned visit with us for the week. As Christmas draws near, Jack noted that they would be coming since Chloe wished to be home for the holiday celebrations. He seemed to radiate a joy that had been absent for quite a while. Young Milo picked up the phone, and they engaged in a delightful conversation for a few minutes. He was eager to engage with Nora, sharing jokes that brought laughter to their conversation. Just before ending the call, he noted that he was the greatest companion I had ever encountered. Once again, he reassured me that he didn't blame me for his predicament. The final words he spoke were, "I love you, Leo. I love your wife, and I love little Milo." I sensed a slight quiver in his voice as he concluded the call. Milo wondered why stepdad Jack said goodbye when we were scheduled to see him the next day. Nora and I both clarified that he was bidding us farewell as well. It's something everyone does when they end a call. I cast a quick look at Nora, both of us silently worried about the absence of Jack and Chloe at that moment. We were taken by surprise when Milo stormed in, having caught the news flash at 6. He informed us that he had overheard the names of Jack and his mother. They were involved in an accident. Nora and I rushed to review the report that had already been disseminated, but we succeeded in accessing it once more at 7, this time accompanied by images. Jack's van veered across the median, crashing into an 18-wheeler. The flatbed, burdened with logs, had toppled over the van upon impact. Jack Patterson was still breathing when the medics arrived, yet he tragically succumbed before assistance could reach him. Could be freed from the debris. His wife Chloe had perished immediately. That explains why Jack bid farewell last night during our conversation with him. Milo forged a connection, perhaps the right one. I reached out to the state police and got the heartbreaking confirmation that both Jack and Chloe had passed away. I informed them that the two were making a trip to visit us before Christmas, since Chloe is my son's mother and my former spouse. Nora and I lay in bed, pondering whether this was truly the accident it seemed to be. What could have compelled Jack to make such a heartbreaking decision? He brought Chloe along, and the response came in the mail 2 days afterward. My dear friend Leo, I trust our paths won't cross again. This evening's phone call marked a farewell. I reached out and had a conversation with you and Nora, particularly my stepson, young Milo. I'm sharing this to provide you with some reassurance in case I'm unable to make it to your home tomorrow. Somewhere between here and your place, I intend to bring Chloe's story to a close. I have accepted that I must end my own life, as it seems to be the only form of justice left for the pain I have inflicted upon you. Come witness Chloe in her true form. She exudes a captivating wickedness that appears to have deepened since her surgery. I frequently contemplate why destiny chose to spare her at that moment. Yet maybe it was to bring us back together and give me the chance to ask for your forgiveness. Perhaps that was the moment Chloe realized that if she were to leave, little Milo would still find his way to you and Nora. It felt like coercion when she threatened to take him away unless I married her, and I sensed this was only the beginning. Exploring the depths of genuine affection has been an adventure alongside you and Nora. In deference to her desires, I acquiesced, yet it proved to be a fleeting endeavor, lasting merely a few weeks. This evening, she indicated that she was on her way, equipped with the court's authorization, to urge you to surrender him and accompany us back. She planned to expose your background as a convicted felon, and Nora's own history was far from spotless, having stabbed her husband. In any family court, it's likely that Chloe would come out on top if the situation reached that level. I admit that I became involved with Chloe while she was still married to you. I was unexpectedly drawn to her in ways I hadn't foreseen over the past few weeks. For days, she taunted me with the idea that your discovering us together was woven into her plan from the very beginning. She thought she could sway you into an agreement, maintaining you as her spouse while I stayed her secret admirer. I could have clarified things for her, given my understanding of you. Chloe was consumed by rage over losing both you and me, and her goal was to turn our lives into a nightmare. She remains oblivious to the fact that her own errors brought about this situation, persistently directing the blame solely at you. The small exhibition on forgiveness prior to her surgery was merely another performance. Was that merely a performance? That charming little smile she offered us when the doctors brought her out of the coma, was it merely an act? She has proudly declared her joy, exclaiming her affection for little Malone. Isn't that hard to fathom? Chloe can't stand him. She's just leveraging him to spite you. Now that she realizes my affection for little Ty, her focus has shifted to me. Nora is not without her own sting, either. The arrangement involved Nora moving into the house with you, feigning affection, and ultimately abandoning you when the time was right. Nora, feeling increasingly alone, has come to realize her feelings for you and understands that you are not the villain Chloe made you out to be. Hats off to Nora. Chloe delivered her most impressive act when we made amends, asserting it was the ideal resolution. In reality, she longed to express her resentment towards each one of us. The letters she referred to as duplicates, allegedly composed for you while you were incarcerated, were actually written approximately 6 months after Nora began living with you. It may be difficult to accept, however, this circumstance has proven to be quite difficult for me. I have someone who can attest to her behavior, just ask George, my nurse. Chloe frequently invited men into her room prior to our marriage. In that moment, I decided to hold my tongue. She was navigating her own path after divorce and had her own desires to consider. On the night of our wedding, she presented a large man to me, saying, "Jack, this is Jamal. He and I are going to celebrate our marriage today. If it bothers you, just don't listen." That moment marked the start of my turmoil, which has only intensified since then. This week, she brought her companion straight into my space and behaved as if I didn't matter at all. Unimaginable occurrences have transpired on my bed, and George has regrettably observed this on several occasions. As I stated earlier, Chloe plans to bring little Milo back here with us, and I cannot permit that to happen. I am assuming the roles of judge, jury, and, in the end, the one who delivers the final verdict. Send some good vibes my way. I cherish each of you, Leo, Nora, and sweet Milo. May you find peace and guidance. Your companion, Jack P. This letter has been left for George to send out. I went through it, then went through it once more, and handed it off to Nora. Do you believe Jack was being honest with us regarding Chloe? I'm uncertain. You had a deeper understanding of Chloe than I did. I find myself leaning towards believing him. He did utter one genuine statement. Chloe dispatched me here to ensure you develop feelings for me. She cautioned me against falling for you, suggesting that it would lead to regret. Back then, I believed she was suggesting that you would bring me immense sorrow. If she realized her plan wasn't unfolding as intended, I imagined she would. I wish to pursue justice for the two of us. You were correct. When I released Jack from the burden of his affair with Chloe during our marriage, it felt as though a heavy load had been removed from him. Chloe shared her emotions, yet I didn't perceive the same depth from her as I did from him. How should we proceed with this letter? Should we submit it to the authorities or dispose of it by incineration? I think we ought to burn it down. That's precisely what crossed my mind. Let's go over it a few more times to make sure we haven't missed anything, and then I will get rid of it, just like Nora did last time. As I pondered the possible destruction our world would have encountered if Chloe had taken little Milo from us, I contemplated Jack's motives. He appeared genuinely earnest, having crafted a strategy and put it into action. Still, I could never fully grasp his intentions. I incinerated his letter alongside the copies from Chloe, which I never found the time to peruse. The remains were entrusted to us as the closest kin, and I acquired a plot where we laid Jack and Chloe to rest next to each other. Graves, unadorned stones with names and dates carved into them, will slowly slip from our recollection, leaving just Nora, young Milo, and me to hold onto the memories. That's the way it ought to be. Dear listeners, I encourage you to express your opinions in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.